Wake up, buy here, pay here people. It's a beautiful day. Go grab yourself another cup of joe and say hello to Jim and Michelle Rhoads on the Buy Here, Pay Here Morning Show. Take it away, you two.
Good morning, everybody.
Hey.
Happy Friday.
Hello again.
It's Friday. I know most of our listeners, people in Buy Here, Pay Here, it's like Saturday is the day that you say Saturday because you're working usually on Friday, but
that's true.
It is. It's a lovely Friday.
Yeah.
And we've had a really busy week.
Mm-hmm.
And I wanted to, those of you who listened in on Wednesday, we kind of talked about brooming.
Oh yeah.
And the negative experience that I have been having looking for a rental property. And it's like I would like to be treated like a person and like have someone think about what is it that you need instead of saying, do you have any felonies?
Right.
And so we have a follow-up we're going to be doing on Wednesday.
Yeah.
About a very wonderful experience that we had that was
side.
like,
so for those who tuned in Wednesday and
great.
heard Michelle's story about the frustrating experience she had while shopping, and there's Shelley who spoke to, she also acknowledged the tune in next Wednesday to hear the flip side of that story. Somebody we met
really
who took a whole
so
different
many
approach.
Great things to learn from it. And it's just like this. Those of you guys who listen know that I come from a pretty strong background of customer service.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm used to dealing with angry people. I'm used to dealing with a lot of this stuff, and it shouldn't change how people are treated from the gate. And it should be. I don't care what segment, what industry. So I have strong feelings.
Yeah.
So
she does. She doesn't mind sharing.
I don't mind sharing them. But Shelley reached out to us after the last show, and she's like,
people were asking, so did you do business with them? No, we didn't do business.
I never responded back to them. And, there's been others that had flavor like that. So before we get into our topic for the day too, I had someone reach out to me and let me know that the early bird morning show code didn't work for them to get their discount yesterday.
Oh, no.
That was the last day. Let me know if you did, send us a message via Facebook, that's where most people are listening, or through LinkedIn or YouTube, to let us know if you had a problem using that code, because we want to make sure that we honor that for you.
And we there is no morning show late bird discounts.
Early bird gets the worm. So we have another code that's coming up for $100 off, but that early bird one was for $125. So if anyone had a problem with that, let us know, and then we can we'll make sure that we get that taken care of. What anything else we need? Oh, the event though, end of the month on the 30th. If you haven't marked your calendar off already, please do, because even if you get a ticket for this, you're going to get access to all the recordings. Oh my gosh, I wiggle too much. It drives him nuts. You're going to get access to all the recordings. There's going to be a lot of really good information that's going to be presented all day long. And we know you guys are busy. And you may not be able to be there the entire time. So if you get a ticket, you will get access to the recordings, watch when you can during the live presentation.
Absolutely.
And then catch up with what you missed and rewatch.
Yeah, very few of our car dealer listeners will be able to sit there
the
all
whole
day
time
for the whole thing. So,
exactly. So we recognize that. We know that. And so, just make sure that you get in there and get that taken care of.
And our guest today is going to be part of that lineup on the 30th. Let's bring in Steve Taylor.
Hello, Steve.
Hey, good morning.
Good morning.
Hey, Jim and Michelle.
Thanks so much for joining us.
So where's home for Steve Taylor? We haven't talked.
I am in Southern Illinois. I am currently in Marion, Illinois.
Nice. So I knew
nice town of about 20,000 people. Right. And when you say Illinois, odds are if you meet someone from Illinois, it's going to be a Chicago suburb.
Right.
Yeah.
Just where all the people are. I am closer. I'm 350 miles from Chicago. I'm closer to Paducah, Kentucky.
Yeah.
I'm closer to Nashville, Indianapolis, St. Louis, a lot of places closer than Chicago.
Is this where close to where your dealership was?
Yes.
Okay, so
our biggest store is in this town. I grew up 20 miles from here.
Yeah, very nice.
very, very nice.
So yeah, this is a thing we got to kind of go back and tell the backstory. So I told Michelle, and she tuned in a little bit and heard some of the we tuned into your recent appearance on the Auto Remarketing podcast with Nick Zulovich. And so that was interesting because the first few minutes on that show, you talked about some of the things that, we would have talked about on that podcast that you originally heard with Brent Carmichael when we did our Tote the Note podcast with Brent Carmichael, Mark Burkholder. You had seen that.
So let's talk about that really quick. That was a 3-part series on Tote the Note called
Why No Blue Sky.
Why No Blue Sky. And we did that almost a year ago.
Yeah, it's been spring.
And so it's in Apple Tunes, YouTube, all of that.
I found it on YouTube, and dealers out there, it's worth listening to.
Yeah.
So that's how actually you and I met, because you had seen it and you approached me at the thing, and so I'm glad we had a chance
at a conference. It was this last fall. Yeah.
And so I would just ask you to tell that part of the story. Like you saw that thing, and so you had you knew that wasn't being talked about enough, right? And so now you can tell how it intersects with your own story.
Well, I think the rub in buy here, pay here as the industry matures, and some people, there are more and more people like me that are in it 20, 25, 30 years. And then you wake up one day and you're like, oh, okay, now what? And we used to still train salespeople that confused customers don't buy anything, right? If you show them too many options, they get confused and they end up leaving.
Yeah.
And I almost feel like that's kind of where a lot of buy here, pay here dealers get when they start thinking about, well, how does this ever end? Or if I ever wanted to stop, what would I do? And then you go through some of the scenarios and none of them sound that great. Hey, there's Bill Elizondo.
Yeah.
Morning, Bill.
Good morning.
Good dude right there. You go through the scenarios and they all sound like, oh, well, I'm not sure I like any of those. So you're confused and you just put your head down and you go back and you sell some more cars and you dig in for, if you sell a car today, you just dug in for 3 or 4 more years.
Yeah.
And I think that's kind of the trick of this. But there are several people, like I've been in 20 groups for a long, long time. Bill was my moderator for part of that time. And some of us are kind of at the point of like, are we going to do this forever? And if you don't have a family succession plan or something, it's a little,
well, even the handoff, if you're doing a family succession plan, there's a bit involved in a handoff even. And so out or handing it off, there's a lot of work that needs to get done.
There are lenders involved, and you can't always just say, hey, my kid's responsible for this debt or whatever. So yeah, there are no just easy scenarios. And this is one of the things I mentioned to Nick, because Nick Zulovich at Cherokee, they have all these publications, and I still get automotive news. My family was in the Ford business for 70 years. So I still follow and a little fascinated by the whole transition to EVs and all that. But if you flip through automotive news, there's ad after ad after ad for brokers and consultants and people who will help you sell your new car dealership. The franchise. At my family's dealership, we sold it, changed the name. You have a couple of months of, hey, whose bill is this? Is this my bill or your bill, the new owner? And it's over.
Yeah.
There's no way to do that in our industry. And there sure aren't any publications with ads that say, here, call me and I'll help you sell your buy here, pay here dealership.
Right, of course.
And it's just it's complicated.
Well, and even if you found business brokers, which is not like you can pick up the yellow pages. First, there are no yellow pages anymore. But second, if you found somebody on Google, it's not like there are a lot of people out there that understand this space, because there are business brokers out there. But boy, buy here, pay here is a different animal.
Yeah.
Well, there's so few transactions. There's not a template. There hasn't been a template. In the new car business, it's some multiple of your earnings or a Ford franchise right now is worth X. And if you look back and of the handful of transactions that we could all probably name off the top of our head, most of them have not gone particularly well for the buyer. So then that makes it even more complicated.
Well, that's what I've always said about buy here, pay here. Like it's interesting because the financials aren't, while that might be used in a traditional, brokering transaction, the financials aren't always indicative of our current performance in our buy here, pay here business, right? So that's another element to what we have that's really tricky. But we know it can be done. This is why I keep saying I'm like a bulldog on this, Steve. I'm going to stay after this subject. After it's like this is not going to for me.
If you can figure it out, there are a lot of people. If they're not listening now, they will someday.
Yeah.
Even I know you guys consult with a lot of newer dealers and people trying to grow their business, and I happen to be in this 20 group with some really established long-term dealers, and I wasn't the only one in the room saying, how long am I going to do this?
Yeah.
And what happens if something happens to me?
Right.
And so
what's that look like?
Exactly. So I want to kind of go back to the Blue Sky Tote the Note, that you were in the process of like, what do I do? Were you already talking to Car-Mart when you watched that podcast?
Yes. In fact, I'd already transacted with Car-Mart, but I still thought it was fascinating that you guys were going after that subject. That we would even have conversations in my 20 group, and you'd say, okay, let's talk a little bit about exit strategy, succession plans, or whatever. And we go around the room and everybody's like, I don't know. And the topic would we'd close the topic and move on to something else. Cause it's just nobody has an answer unless you have a good family succession plan. It's messy. But as far as my exposure to Car-Mart, I had met Jeff Williams way back in 2015 or 16. And then in 2019, I was at NIADA and we connected again and just started kicking some things around. And that's how that reconnection happened.
Fantastic.
Yeah. So, I know you shared a little bit with me about kind of how that went down. I know you indicated that when you actually sold your business to America's Car-Mart, that you didn't convey the portfolio in that transaction, right? So you might talk about that a little bit, just to the extent you're willing to share how yours
Sure. Well, and since you guys have spent so much time talking about where's the enterprise value or the blue sky, or how does this, why can't we change the name on the building? Why doesn't this happen? We've got these financials that look great. Maybe they're good to great, but yet we still can't find someone to make this work. And it always comes back to dealing with this portfolio. And the example, if I can I'll have to do easy math. Let's say I've got a portfolio of I've built it up over time, and I've got $5 million worth of loans. And Jim wants to buy my business. I think I can collect $5 million on that portfolio. I'll collect some interest. I'll have some charge-offs, but I think I can probably end up with all my principal and $5 million. He's going to protect himself. He doesn't think it's probably going to pay that, or at least he's going to protect the downside. So he may think it's maybe worth 80, but he wants to protect against that. So he may offer me 60 or 70. And then Michelle's his bank, and he goes to Michelle and says, I want to buy Steve's business. And she says, well, I'll give you 50 cents.
Yeah.
I'll only loan you 50 cents. So we have a total disconnect right there.
Yeah.
And that happens over and over and over. And that's only part of it. I have had a very, very successful new car group approach me. It's been 7 or 8 years ago. A lot of rooftops, a lot of franchises, did a little buy here, pay here themselves. And they were interested. They knew I sold a lot of vehicles and financed a lot. And the guy says, hey, I'd be interested in acquiring your operation. Okay, I'll listen to anything, right? So we kicked some things around, and he wasn't afraid of the facilities or the leases or any of that. Profitability, it all makes sense. He goes home and calculates how much cash he's going to have to borrow the following year to fund. When you go from 0 buy here, pay here deals to, at the time I was probably doing 1,500. He's like, I'm going to have to borrow $10 million next year. And he said, I don't want to do that.
Right.
So you have to be careful in this business. I got to sort of, I think, an awkward size where I'm too big for my competitor or friend down the street to buy me out. And I'm too small for private equity to care. And they're probably not coming to Southern Illinois in these small towns.
Yeah.
So it's a difficult spot to be in.
Yeah. Tangent. Can I ask, am I right to remember, is America's Car-Mart originally rooted, did they get their start in Arkansas or that vicinity of the country?
Yeah, and I can't speak to how they became public and that why they're the only publicly traded company in our space. But yes, the home office is in Rogers, Arkansas.
Okay.
Beautiful, beautiful facility. And if you've never been to Northwest Arkansas, it's I know why it's a place where people retire. It's pretty neat.
Oh,
For sure.
awesome.
Yeah. So I even really asked because there's part of my own career that ties back to some of those, people who were involved in some of those early days. And so that part's interesting to me. Like, I think it's a wonderful example, of, Car-Mart at the time they were a private company, did what few people have done, which is, scale, buy here, pay here successfully, and obviously now move to a public enterprise. But it's an interesting thing to observe just from the sidelines. And I want to ask you too about Keith Hagler. So I saw at your website, which was a little confusing because this says Taylor Auto Credit, which is your name. So I'm thinking, wait.
I knew this was going to cause problems as soon as we reach out. My company in Illinois was Taylor Motor Company.
Okay.
Related finance company. It was called Auto Credit of Southern Illinois.
Yeah.
Car-Mart, and I didn't really answer your question. Car-Mart acquired the car company, the car side of my business, Taylor Motor Company. They did not acquire my related finance company, Auto Credit, and I have over the last 3 years collected out my portfolio. So that's where how we took the portfolio rub out of the equation. Keith Hagler, fantastic guy, family. He's got a great operation in Taylor, Texas. So his company is called Taylor Auto Credit.
Right.
So yeah.
So yeah, when I saw that, I thought, well, wait a minute, they acquired Taylor. That's Steve Taylor, and then it's anyway. We put it all together.
But those of you, a lot of people know Keith. He's former president of NIADA, and he's been a great spokesperson for our industry for a long time. And he did a transaction with Car-Mart right just at the first of this year.
Mm-hmm. Right.
So and that was actually the third acquisition. I was the first in Southern Illinois, my 3 locations, and then there was Smart Auto in Tennessee, which is can't think of the first name. One's in Knoxville, and there's another one in Tennessee, and then Keith.
Yeah,
we have I'm going to add this to the stream.
Graphic to show.
There you go.
Yeah, so we grabbed that from
this is showing new acquisitions are the red, and then the blue are existing dealerships. And so Car-Mart has a pretty good in the central part of the U.S. a pretty good showing, showing in that.
It came back to me, Johnson City, Tennessee. That's
Johnson City, Tennessee.
Johnson City. But if you look, I'm the 3 red dots in Southern Illinois,
right,
and people are like, "Hey, why did you sell to Car-Mart?" I'm like, "My God, they're all around me. They are. I might as well."
Yeah. Right.
Yeah.
So, it's pretty impressive to see what
I got to stop and say we're really grateful that you've agreed to participate in this event at the end of the month, because we're really going to get a chance to drill into the entire day. And we've got, lots of experts coming to
talk about all the
contribute
pieces
to the conversation. Yeah. Because I really just want to spend some time breaking this down. And I think for me, I look at it and I think, well, and we've talked about, like, if there are 100 dealers listening, there's going to be a small fraction of them that really are even thinking about selling in the next 12, 24 months, whatever. But I think for us, it's like trying to help dealers think about, okay, what could I do tomorrow, though? Even if I'm 10, 20 years from retirement, what could I do tomorrow in my business that would position me for that day? And maybe I'm not selling to America's Car-Mart, but I'm positioning my business to sell to a competitor or hand it off to a son-in-law or whatever that whole thing looks like. We're just trying to help dealers understand what are the pieces that I could install in my business, what's missing from my business now that could help me get there. And so you're a good example of somebody who's, lived it.
So what would you say were some of the things that you had done, whether or not you were preparing because you knew that was something they were going to look at, but things that they said, okay, this looks good, this looks good, this looks good?
Well, I can tell you, if I'm Car-Mart today and we're out looking and talking to dealers, we're going to be looking at ideally it would somewhat fit within that footprint that you just showed. And it's a pretty large footprint. And if I could back up a little bit, my 3 little dots in Illinois, I never scaled my business any bigger because I needed to go to Paducah, Kentucky, and Evansville, Indiana, and Cape Girardeau, Missouri to get in big enough markets to make it make sense. I didn't want to deal with all those different states and all the different regulations and the repo laws and whatever. So that's where Car-Mart has successfully done that, and they can scale it across different states. Obviously, we probably don't want to jump to California or Oregon or something like that, just from a logistics standpoint. But the biggest thing is they're going to look for a history of, do you take care of your team? Do you take care of your employees? And do you take care of the customer? Nobody wants to buy somebody's business that is just a churn, harsh, the old tote the note thing. You know, we need a culture of compliance.
Yeah.
When we say safeguarding rule, you actually know what that is. And obviously profitability is a piece of it. And we also wouldn't want to take a tiny somebody that's doing 5 or 10 cars a month, and Car-Mart doesn't want to try to have to grow that to 50 or 80 a month or whatever. So we're looking for some size and scale and history. But what they're looking for is the team of people. As we all know, this is all about people. My staff, if I can get on a tangent here, but the first thing my staff all thought when I made the announcement is, we're all going to get replaced. A team of Car-Mart people is going to come in and replace us. Couldn't be further from the truth.
Yeah. And that answers this question from this Facebook user. It's, another big problem with selling portfolio other than money is the customer base is loyal to you, but very hard to transfer that to the next owner. And you just addressed that. It's if a customer knows that it's the same team, and a customer knows that, that they're continuing business in the same fashion, which means you probably had a very defined, this is how we handle this, and this is how we do this stuff, and this is what the process looks like to take someone through stepping on the lot to,
we had a predetermined, we called it a workout deal. It's someone who has a balance with my old company, but they want to buy a newer, shinier, nicer Car-Mart car. And how does that work? And I don't necessarily want to take a bunch of short payoffs. Car-Mart doesn't want to pay me off. And so, but we worked out a thing, and it's been great, and it makes sense on both sides. And right now we have a great commercial that's running. It's all my team, and they're saying auto credit is now America's Car-Mart. Same people, same great service, same even better tax season, better tax season. And so we transition it over time.
Very nice.
And it kind of has that flavor of the franchise dealer where we're just changing names.
Right.
That's all we're doing. We
use this. My same team is in the commercials, and they rip off their auto credit shirt, and now they have the new Car-Mart shirt, and then they show newer, nicer, shinier cars, and it's good. Yeah. It's fun.
Cool.
Well, and it is nice. I mean, obviously a lot of our dealer operators out there are not necessarily looking to exit, but they can learn from, I think, what we're hearing here. And I'm at your website, by the way. I'm reading through, and I would urge people to hop in there and read the stuff. Steve's got a little short bio in there. But when I look at what are they seeking, there's a little paragraph on the website that says, Car-Mart seeks well-established dealerships. And when I look through that list, it's very heavy on customer satisfaction, community involvement. And, that's what Michelle and I talk a lot about with our white hat approach.
It's the intangible things that you're doing.
Right. Yeah, right. And I think my team, they were initially nervous, of course. Hey, what has Steve done here? We've worked for Steve for maybe 10 or 20 years. What's going on? This is a big company in Arkansas. But once they see how serious they are about taking care of the customer, they have mission, vision, value statements, and they live them. And we start every meeting with them, and it's they see that, hey, these are nice people, and they're trying to do the right thing. Oh, that's what we've always done.
Yeah.
And so it works.
So it's just it's a paycheck from a different company.
Yeah. That's a big part of it. And for me personally, and I tell people this, I don't mind sharing it. The day we did the transaction, they didn't buy my portfolio, but they bought the car company, and they took on, from the HR side, they took on all the employee benefits and all of that.
Beautiful.
And I don't have to have meetings about health insurance anymore, or, I got this big packet from the corporate office, and it was lime green. I'm like, wonder what this is. Oh, that's all the health insurance and the benefits package for the whole calendar year. I'm like, wow. So there's definitely some things that I should probably back up. I think the for the people that are thinking, hey, someday I might want to get out, I think the difficult things to connect are, how do I get the maximum value for my portfolio, which is really what we've all spent our time building and, cultivating all this effort. You don't want to give it away or take a haircut on it or whatever. And how do I get the most from my portfolio and everyone still gets to keep their job?
Yeah.
That was a very big factor for me. And I think sometimes gets forgotten, because if you start looking at your strategies for, I turned 56 and maybe I don't want to do this forever. Well, I don't have a family member that's going to take it over. I really don't want to sell my loans at a discount because everybody loses their job. One of the other options is to shrink the business down. We had gone from 4 stores back to 3. One of the things I had been considering before Car-Mart was, well, maybe someday I'll just take it back to 1 store. I can almost run that maybe remotely and just simplify it, shrink it down, but still you're laying people off. Some of these are people my dad hired. And it's like, I just can't do that. Most of the exit strategies were me taking my ball and go home, collect out my AR and go home. Well, this was a way where everybody got to keep their job. I feel like I got good value for my portfolio, and it's turned out. I'm 3 years in now. I just hit my 3-year anniversary with Car-Mart, and every one of my management team is still there. So that says something.
That says a lot.
Yeah. And that pleases me probably more than anything.
Yeah.
Just that I didn't put them in a bad spot.
Yeah.
Of course.
And we're not out here advocating for get rid of your business at all.
No,
we talk more and more dealers every day that are like, I have been doing this for a long time, and it's just like, I don't know what to do. It's like, I don't know what to do. And so we have that conversation, and then we have conversations with dealers that we work with across the US that it's like, we had a scare in our business, key man as themselves or one of their key people. And it's like, it was a scramble. We didn't know what to do. And it made me think, oh my goodness, what if this person were just gone? And, how would I retrain? How would I do the stuff? What if something happened to, because, we're not invincible. We're not invincible.
Yeah.
And so any number of things can happen. So this is about it's about positioning yourself for if you want to exit, but this is also about really strengthening your business from the foundation up. And if you want to keep it and transfer it to a kid or stay in it for another 30 years, you're going to have a better business from this process.
Absolutely. And people ask me, well, what made you decide, hey, I don't want to do this anymore? One, I felt like I was getting complacent. Tax season 27 wasn't as exciting as tax season 7. Mm-hmm. And I was playing defense. Hey, don't screw anything up. Don't get sued. Mm-hmm. But I wasn't going to work one, I didn't want to borrow more money. So I didn't really want to add 20% sales volume. So we were kind of just circling the airport, and that's, if you're entrepreneurial at all, that's not that fun, right? Right. And right. I did have maybe it was not really at the front of my mind, but I had a couple of things I can look back on. I turned 50. I had one of my best friends in the industry passed away suddenly, and that was a shocker to a lot of people, including myself. And my general manager, who runs the business day to day and has for 25 years, still is today, had a medical scare. And you start thinking, wait a minute, this thing's not bulletproof. Right. This isn't, it might not always go exactly as I planned. And then I had a good business friend in a different industry. We were talking one day, and he said, you probably don't get to pick your exit timing perfectly just like you want. Usually it's going to be market driven. The market's going to change, or your business isn't as viable or as it was, or something changes. Maybe it's health or medical or whatever, but for you to think that, I'm just going to go till this exact date, and then this is exactly how this is going to go down, is somewhat naive. Yeah. Especially in a business as complicated as ours, right?
Well, it's nice of you to say somewhat. Mm-hmm. It's very complicated. And it is very,
you start thinking reinsurance and my wife's a first grade teacher. My parents are older, and I'm like, if something happened to me, I don't want them cleaning this mess up. This would be a mess.
Amen.
Right.
Amen.
Yeah.
Excellent.
And I guess, we look forward to having you back on. Of course, again,
Yeah.
you'll be joining us on the event on March 30th. But I think it's just a really interesting thing to me when I look at Car-Mart as a mega company and massive revenues and wide footprint, all those kind of things. And then I look at the profile of what we're looking to acquire, and I can't help but notice that a big part of that is this customer-centric approach, community involvement. It's around an ideology. So really, I think, so what can we conclude? If I'm a dealer looking at that, I can think, okay, so what is that? We think it's a math driven transaction. Of course, the numbers have to work,
Yeah.
but in reality, we're looking for a business, or they're looking for a business that is sustainable and has a good reputation in the community and is an asset to the community, right? And so
Exactly.
that's part of what
no one
see.
wants to buy a turn and burn.
Right.
Yeah.
And I hear Jeff Williams all the time say, the communities are better when Car-Mart is there, and we help people. And the tagline is keeping you on the road.
Yeah.
Not once has Car-Mart ever said, why is your goodwill or policy expense too high? Why are you spending so much money in Illinois keeping your customers on the road? That's just not how they operate.
Right.
Yeah.
So
I wanted before we left is just this event on the end of the month. We're going to be talking about defining value, buyers and sellers, buying and selling, your systems, your fundability, your exit and succession. And then we're also going to have like a checklist. It's like, here are the things that you should do and be watching for, just for a strength of a business, and so that you can start putting your succession plan together.
Yeah, so we definitely expect to be able to send those participants away with a checklist that'll say these are things that you can do, and they don't have to be done tomorrow, but you can certainly make sure. But I think you kind of touched on them. I mean, if the business is compliant and is very customer focused, then that obviously positions us well. And then there's going to be some other internal things we can create. But
one of the things I didn't mention is who's the team. Like if Steve collects his portfolio out on the side over here and leaves, who's running this? What's the bench strength behind Steve? And I have a very senior, very experienced team. And I think that was a big part of why that worked and why the transition was so smooth.
Well, and that's the other thing too, frankly, with this event. It's like we want to talk a little bit about absenteeism and what that looks like for people. Like, can I be away some and still have my business function well? So maybe we're not even thinking to sell. A lot of operators are very young.
I don't know if I got this from my dad or what, but I've always felt negligent when I wasn't at the dealership. Mm-hmm. And somebody else told me one time, it's like, if you've been there 25 years and it's dependent on you to show up every day, you've done something wrong. And it really wasn't. It's not dependent on me. In fact, they just broke their all-time sales record in February without me, which is great, and I'm happy. But it's a little weird. It's like, if you think you're not replaceable, you are, because I'm not there, and they broke the record. So
that is a testament to a very well-run business.
It is.
Yeah.
And a nice partnership now, if you want to call it a partnership, where they've acquired the business and able to bring their skills to the thing.
They have. They've brought some good things to us, including they supplement us with quite a bit of inventory, which, as you know, during tax season is key. We can never quite recondition as much as we need during tax season.
Right. Yeah. So again, thanks for making time to talk, Steve. I think it's an example of where we know that, very few dealers listening would really, be candidates necessarily right away to sell to America's Car-Mart, but just, it's important to know that exists as an exit solution. It's, and all the things that a person might do to position for that are going to help the business be more successful between now and the time that we do exit. So that's where we're coming from, is let's talk about how to move toward a little more absenteeism, how to position ourselves for growth, and what makes us, I keep going through all these words thinking about this event, like more sustainable, more conveyable, what makes your business more valuable. Like, so that's what that whole day is about. And so again, we're thrilled you're going to be there with us, and thanks again for making time this morning.
Okay, look forward to it. Just if I can put one plug in, if anybody has any questions on the Car-Mart side, actually, you can email me. It's probably the easiest. It's acquisitions at car-mart.com.
That's easy.
Acquisition.
Or, acquisitions at car-mart.com. And then there's also a link that I think that's what you just projected earlier.
Yeah.
That is car-mart.com/acquisitions. If you go to that, you'll see all the,
Yeah.
anyway.
Hey,
for sure.
if you want to stick around for just a second, if you've got a little bit of time, we kind of like to just wrap up just personally after we're done with.
Absolutely. Happy to.
Excellent. Thanks again so much, Steve, for joining
Everybody collect your tax money.
That's right.
I'm running out.
us. All right. Excellent. Great
Such good
conversation.
information, yeah.
Really great conversation. We really appreciate Steve being here to kind of talk about some of the stuff. If you haven't got your tickets, get it. You're going to be able to watch the recordings. This is going to be a really, really impactful, jam-packed day. We're bringing together, there's more than like 25 people that will be joining us at different times that are experts in different things. So
yeah, we're going to bring the folks that have the answers.
We're going to bring folks that have the
hard
answers.
questions.
Yeah, exactly. All right, everybody. Have yourself a great rest of your day. We'll see you on Monday.